Welcome to Mentorshowcase Magazine, newly formed by Love in Motion Productions. Mentorshowcase Magazine will feature local and national untold stories of those giving back to others. We invite you.
Hello, and welcome to Mentorshowcase Magazine, where we showcase ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm Jerry Gibson, your host, and today we have with us Dr. Bivins Smith, psychologist, author, among other things. Dr. Smith, pleasure having you here.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Let's start by you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was actually told I needed to tell you 3 things about myself, so
Well, take your time.
I'm all prepared for this. As you said, I'm a psychologist. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm also the president of Smith Life, which is an online portal for mental wellness.
Okay.
And I'm dedicated to providing education and guidance and tools for people to understand their mental health, as well as learning to improve and maintain their wellness.
Wow. Sound like you busy. Psychology. Now that's a field that requires a lot of study, a lot of time. What motivated you to go into that particular field, Dr. Smith?
Well, I'll keep the story short because it was a long process. I have my bachelor's in political science and a master's in education, specifically in adult education. And I went into adult education with the hope of helping people live better lives. I came across this saying that talked about being happy on purpose, and I've worked for corporations, training people in leadership development skills, and always wondered, what more can I do to help people live a better life? And after my master's in education, it dawned on me that psychology was the place where I could do the deep dive and understand the processes, the actual physical processes that help people live happier lives.
What are some of the challenges you have or have seen as a psychologist? I guess that's the question that I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, I understand. There are challenges. I think the major challenge right now for people is the stigma, especially for people of color. Mental health has been something that if you go to see a psychologist or someone in the mental health profession, that means you're crazy and something is wrong with you.
Okay.
My hope is to bring a different perspective on that. The thought is that we are humans and we have our flaws, we have our faults, and that is what makes us perfectly human. So when we have things like depression and anxiety, when we worry, that is part of being human. It doesn't mean that something is broken and wrong with us. That's part of us. And helping people understand that it is your physical, it is part of your physical being that changes when you have depression and anxiety. Our mental is not something out here, but actually it is our brain. Our brains, if we didn't have a brain, we wouldn't walk, talk, we wouldn't see, we wouldn't feel. So our brain is responsible for how we feel. And our brain is responsible for things like depression and anxiety. When people have serious mental illness like schizophrenia, it is actually the brain that is responsible for those processes that cause people distress.
Now, in your studies, have you found that trauma causes some of those depressions, or in your practice, what do you normally see that I guess causes those types of those anxieties or those depressions or things of that nature?
Well, you mentioned trauma. Trauma is one thing that could cause people to feel distress, like anxiety and depression. But look at our everyday lives. the fast-paced and challenging lives that we all have to lead. There are bills to pay, children to take care of. You go to school, you go to work, you have a boss. You have bills to pay every single day, and you're getting up and having to deal with those life stressors. So sometimes that becomes overwhelming for people. Taking care of sick parents, sick children, becoming sick, your own illnesses. All of those things are stressors. All of those things can be stressful to us and precipitate depression and anxiety.
In my own family, I've seen some form of schizophrenia and depression and things of that nature. If you're a family member and you see, what are some of the signs, I guess I'm trying to ask, that would let somebody know that this person is suffering either from depression, schizophrenia, or things of that nature? What are some of the signs?
Well, definitely if the person has a change in behavior. You see the person every day. You know what kind of person they are. If their behavior changes, you might ask them, what's going on? Have a talk with them. If you're seeing a lot of tearfulness, a lot of acting out. One of the things that I have in my book, Control Your Crazy, Work the Good, Tame the Bad and Ugly, is a list of things that are signs that behaviors are coming problematic and distressful. Everywhere from being tearful every day to drinking too much, taking drugs, getting into fights, getting arrested. Okay, so it can go on a real spectrum of the good to the really ugly.
Oftentimes we have situations in our life such as say a bad relationship, or say we go through something where say we're not able to make a bill payment on time or something to that degree. Is there a time limit when a person is depressed? And what I mean by that is, say for instance, if you got a person mourns somebody's death, is there a time limit that they're expected to come out of that before they're designated or titled, depressed or schizophrenic or something to that nature? Is there a time limit that?
In the book that psychologists use is called the DSM, and the latest version is the DSM-5. And, they give estimates of time, a few months for people who are in mourning, periods of depression, 2 weeks. But these are time frames. Things are very specific to the individual, and also culture plays a part. So saying that someone should only mourn for, 3 months or mourn for 6 months may not be relevant, because your culture says that it is appropriate to mourn for a year. So it's really important to understand, as a psychologist and as a mental health professional, to understand the cultural context, to understand diversity issues when you're providing people any guidance.
And see, and that's one of the things that I never really even thought about, the cultural differences. Wow. So
Well, one of the things that we have training on, we actually go to classes, and in our code of ethics is the requirement to be culturally competent. So as part of ethical considerations, we have to take coursework and ensure that we are maintaining an understanding of how to work with people of different backgrounds.
Well, say if you had a couple, and well, let me say this, the ratio between men and women, is it a big disparity between men and women that you see coming in for help in the health field? Do men just cry at night or in silence, and women are more apt to come and be seen and heard? Or
well, I don't have the numbers offhand, but women are more likely to seek out mental health treatment And I often have women who will call for their spouses to come into therapy. So women are more open to talking about their problems.
Well, why is that? And how do we bridge that gap? I mean,
Why
if you got,
could be most likely how we're socialized.
Mm.
That's the quick and dirty answer, how we're socialized. But how we bridge the gap is communicating. My purpose of writing Control Your Crazy was to provide education about mental health.
Okay.
So helping people understand that mental health and mental wellness is about your brain, and getting better is about helping to build new cells in your brain. So when you learn things, us sitting here, the cells in your brain are actually changing.
Okay.
So in order to remember the information that we've talked about, the cells in your brain have to stick around and they have to change, and you have to maintain them. When you get therapy, your therapist is helping you to build new cells. When people are depressed, their happy chemicals go down. When you're anxious, those chemicals that make you feel worried and anxious and jittery, those chemicals go up. When you work with a therapist, they're actually working to help you change your brain so you can feel better. There's no magic in your mental health.
So if I got a friend that's acting up, it wouldn't be too harsh to tell them, look, you need to go see a therapist.
Or you can tell them to control your crazy.
Control your crazy.
Just hold up the book, Control Your Crazy.
That's something. Dr. Smith, what's your passion?
My passion, doing what I'm doing now.
Wow.
I'm very blessed to be able to be in a profession where I can make a living
Mm-hmm.
and help people. And I couldn't ask for more.
What are some of the common myths that you see in the healthcare profession?
Myths about
Mental health. I guess with people of color, especially the African American community, as you stated earlier, oftentimes we don't go to the doctors. Sometimes we just don't trust them.
Mm-hmm. That trust is a huge issue. Yeah.
Or we don't like to be looked upon as if we're crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess along those lines, have you seen any other things that that we could dispel as far as myths go in the healthcare profession?
When getting any type of health care, whether it's mental or for your medical health,
Mm-hmm.
your physical health, it's important to be a good consumer, to educate yourself. And like I said, I'm providing education that your brain is at the center of your mental health. It is not magic. Being a good consumer means researching your provider and finding out whether you're going to be a good match. If you go in, you don't feel comfortable with your provider, then it's going to be difficult to form a relationship and to get better. So getting mental health treatment is just like any other thing. It's helpful to be a good consumer and get the education so that you can get the help you want.
Well, how can we encourage those that we see that need help to actually go in and get it?
Well, again, wellsmithlife.com has some videos where I talk about mental health and explain the things we've talked about briefly today. And it also provides resources to further get education and find help.
Dr. Smith, one other thing. Are there any volunteering that you do or outreach programs that you are part of or affiliated with?
I volunteer right now for the National Association of Healthcare Service Executives. I am the chairperson right now for the Public Policy Committee.
Dr. Smith, I appreciate you and your time. And I thank you so much for this interview, and hopefully we can come back later and have another interview for you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much. And for those of you who'd like to watch this interview in its entirety, please visit us at mentorshowcasemagazine.com. And you can also see us on YouTube. Thank you so much and have a good evening.